For 30 years, military experts agreed on one thing about Britain's Challenger 2 tank. It was obsolete.
Challenger 2.
Challenger 2.
Challenger 2.
Challenger 2.
Challenger 2.
Challenger 2 has been destroyed.
Not bad, exactly, just wrong for modern war. Too slow, too heavy, the wrong gun, outdated sights. British defense analysts said it, Russian experts said it, even Ukrainian crews who received them said it. The verdict was unanimous. The Challenger 2 was a 70-ton relic from a war that would never happen. Then it went to Ukraine, and everything the experts knew turned out to be wrong. Not slightly wrong, completely wrong. Because the Challenger 2 didn't just defy its critics, it exposed a much bigger mistake. A mistake baked into 40 years of Western tank design. A mistake that every NATO army made. A mistake that Ukraine has now proven could get thousands of soldiers killed. This isn't a story about a tank. It's a story about how the entire concept of tank warfare died in Ukrainian mud, and how the tank everyone called a relic turned out to be the only one accidentally built for the war that actually came. Let me show you exactly how wrong we all were. Start with the case against the Challenger 2, because it was damning, and it came from everywhere. The gun. While the American Abrams and German Leopard 2 switched to smoothbore cannons decades ago, Britain stubbornly kept a rifled gun, the L30A 120mm. Smoothbore guns fire faster, hit harder against armor, and use standardized NATO ammunition. The Challenger 2's rifled gun couldn't share ammunition with any ally. Worse, Britain stopped manufacturing the three-piece rifled ammunition it needed. Critics called it a logistical dead end. The weight. At 70 to 75 tons combat loaded, the Challenger 2 is one of the heaviest tanks on Earth. And it's powered by a 1,200 horsepower engine, the same engine as the lighter Challenger 1. The result? The worst power-to-weight ratio of any NATO main battle tank. Underpowered, sluggish, prone to bogging down. The sights. The Challenger 2 relied on first-generation thermal imaging. The Russian T-90M and South Korean K-2 used third-generation sights, 2 full generations ahead. In a long-range gunnery duel, the Challenger 2 should have been outmatched before it could even see its target. And then there was the number. Britain had around 213 operational Challenger 2s. It planned to upgrade only 148. Defense commentators ran the maths and concluded too few to matter. The United States has thousands of Abrams. Russia had thousands of tanks. What difference could 148 British tanks possibly make? The verdict was unanimous. Underpowered, undergunned for NATO standardization, under-equipped with modern optics, and too few to count. When Britain announced it was sending 14 Challenger 2s to Ukraine in January 2023, some analysts argued it was almost pointless. 14 obsolete tanks in a war of thousands. They were about to be proven wrong in a way nobody saw coming. But before we get to how the Challenger 2 rewrote the rules, I need to tell you about the day it failed. Because the experts thought this was the moment they'd been proven right. September 4th, 2023, southern Ukraine. The first Challenger 2 ever destroyed in combat. For 30 years, the Challenger 2 had a perfect record. It had never been lost to enemy fire. Not once, in Iraq, in Bosnia, anywhere. The only one ever knocked out before this was destroyed by another Challenger 2 in a friendly fire incident in 2003. The tank was, quite literally, the only thing that could kill itself. Russian media erupted. The invincible British tank destroyed. Sputnik ran the headline. The Challenger 2 got its first taste of combat in Ukraine and failed. Russian analysts declared the myth shattered, the relic exposed. Except they'd completely misread what happened. Because the way that tank was lost didn't prove the Challenger 2 was obsolete. It proved something the experts had missed entirely, and it's the key to this whole story. Hold that thought. Because to understand why that first loss actually proved the opposite of what everyone said, you need to understand what tanks were originally built to do. Here's the thing every criticism of the Challenger 2 had in common. Every single one was measured against a specific idea of what a tank is for. That idea was born on the plains of Central Europe during the Cold War. The entire Western tank doctrine, every design choice in the Abrams, the Leopard 2, every NATO tank, was built around one nightmare scenario. Thousands of Soviet tanks pouring through the Fulda Gap into West Germany, and NATO armor racing to meet them in the largest tank battle since Kursk. That scenario demanded specific things: speed to maneuver across open ground and outflank Soviet formations, rate of fire to kill as many tanks as possible in a fast-moving engagement, smoothbore guns firing standardized ammunition so a German tank and an American tank could share shells in the chaos of a continental war. The tank was a racehorse, fast, aggressive, built to charge. Measured against that doctrine, the Challenger 2 looked terrible. Slow racehorse, wrong ammunition, built more like a fortress than a cavalry charger. But here's what the experts never asked. What if that war never comes? What if the next war looks nothing like the Fulda Gap? Because that's exactly what happened. And the doctrine that made the Challenger 2 look obsolete was about to die in Ukraine. Stop, because this is the exact moment everything flips. This is where everything we knew was wrong stops being a title and becomes a fact. In Ukraine, tanks stopped charging. They had to. The moment a tank moved in the open, it was spotted by a reconnaissance drone, tracked in real time, and struck by an FPV kamikaze drone, a loitering munition, or precision artillery, often within minutes. The drone kill zone extends 20 kilometers from the front line. A tank that charges across open ground in 2026 isn't a racehorse, it's a coffin. Russia learned this the hard way. It has lost over 4,000 tanks and armored vehicles. Entire armored assaults, the exact kind of massed charge NATO doctrine was built around, were wiped out before reaching their objectives. At Orikhiv, 22 of 26 Russian armored vehicles were destroyed in a single attack. So the speed that NATO prized? Useless, because you can't outrun a drone that flies at 150 kilometers per hour. The rate of fire for a fast-moving battle? Irrelevant, because there are no fast-moving battles anymore. The whole doctrine, the racehorse tank, was dead. And in that new reality, the things that made the Challenger 2 look obsolete suddenly became the most valuable features a tank could have. Watch what happens when you measure the Challenger 2 against the war that actually came, instead of the war that never did. The 70-ton mass and thick Dorchester armor that critics called sluggish and impractical? In a war where every tank gets hit by drones, missiles, and artillery, the question isn't how fast can it move, it's can the crew survive a hit? And the Challenger 2's armor is among the best protected on Earth. Ukrainian crews from the 82nd Air Assault Brigade reported Challenger 2s surviving direct hits that would have destroyed other tanks. The Dorchester composite armor, the classified successor to Chobham, absorbed strikes and kept the crew alive. In a war defined by survivability, the Challenger 2's excessive weight was exactly the right trade. Then take the gun, the rifled cannon that critics said was a logistical dead end. Ukrainian crews started calling the Challenger 2 a sniper rifle among tanks. The rifling that NATO abandoned gives the barrel exceptional long-range accuracy. Combined with the tank's superb gun stabilization and fire control, Ukrainian crews used it to hit Russian targets at extreme range, reportedly out past 5 kilometers. And that is the heart of it. In the new doctrine, a tank doesn't charge. It hides behind terrain, identifies a target at extreme range, fires one precise shot, and relocates before the drones can find it. A sniper, not a racehorse. The Challenger 2's rifled gun, the obsolete feature every expert criticized, turned out to be the perfect weapon for the sniper doctrine that drone warfare created. Now, remember that first Challenger 2 destroyed in September 2023? The one Russian media celebrated as proof the tank had failed? Here's what they missed. The tank wasn't lost in a tank duel. It wasn't outgunned by a T-90M. It wasn't penetrated by superior Russian armor. Most analysis suggests it was immobilized, likely by a mine or artillery, then abandoned by its crew, who survived, and was later set ablaze by follow-up strikes. Think about what that actually proves. The tank's armor did its job. The crew walked away. It wasn't beaten by a better tank. It was caught in the exact drone and artillery kill zone that makes the old doctrine suicidal. The Challenger 2 wasn't the failure. The way it was being used as a breakthrough tank in the old style was the failure. And Ukraine figured that out, fast. They stopped using the Challenger 2 the way Britain designed it, and started using it the way the new war demanded. That single change turned the obsolete relic into one of the most feared tanks on the front. Britain designed the Challenger 2 as a main battle tank, a frontline breakthrough weapon meant to lead assaults. Ukraine looked at the tank, looked at the battlefield, and made a decision that British doctrine never intended. They They turned it into a mobile sniper platform. The 82nd Air Assault Brigade stopped sending Challenger 2s charging at Russian lines. Instead, they positioned them in concealed firing points, used the first-rate optics and that rifled gun to engage Russian vehicles and fortifications at extreme range, and then pulled back before Russian drones could locate and strike them. Shoot and scoot. Precision over aggression. Survivability over speed. It worked because every weakness was actually a strength in this role. The heavy armor meant that on the rare occasion a drone did find them, the crew survived. The rifled gun meant pinpoint accuracy at distances where Russian return fire was inaccurate. The tank wasn't keeping pace with a fast assault, because there were no fast assaults. It was sitting still, hidden, lethal. The HESH rounds the rifled gun could fire, high-explosive squash head, turned out to be devastating against the bunkers, buildings, and fortified positions that define Ukraine's static front lines. Another outdated feature that the new war made valuable. Britain built a racehorse and never realized it had actually built a sniper. It took a Ukrainian Air Assault Brigade fighting for survival to discover what the Challenger 2 was truly for.
But here's where I have to be honest with you. Because this story isn't a simple British tank is secretly the best video, the truth is more interesting than that. The Challenger 2 is not a perfect tank. The mobility problems are real. It genuinely bogs down in Ukrainian mud, and crews genuinely complained about it. The ammunition problem is real. The rifled rounds are going out of production, and one day, Ukraine's Challenger 2s will run out of shells. Only 7 of the 14 donated tanks were estimated to remain operational at one point. Not from combat losses, but from breakdowns and maintenance. So why does any of this matter if the tank has real flaws? Because the point was never that the Challenger 2 is flawless. The point is that we judged it by the wrong test. We measured a sniper against the standard of a racehorse and called it slow. We measured a survivor against the standard of a sprinter and called it heavy. Every criticism was true, and every criticism was irrelevant, because it measured the tank against a war that no longer exists. And that's the mistake that should terrify every NATO army, because they're all still building racehorses. This is bigger than the Challenger 2. The lesson Ukraine taught applies to every tank in every army on Earth. The American Abrams went to Ukraine too. Initially, it was used aggressively, and several were quickly lost to drones and missiles. Then, Ukrainian crews adapted, pulling them back into the same long-range shoot-and-scoot role. The same lesson. The fast, aggressive doctrine the Abrams was built for got tanks killed. The cautious sniper doctrine kept them alive. Even the new tanks are being redesigned around this. Britain's Challenger 3, the upgrade, is finally switching to a smoothbore gun for NATO ammunition compatibility. But its headline new feature? An Israeli-designed active protection system to shoot down incoming drones and missiles. The next generation isn't being built for speed, it's being built to survive the drone age. The American M1E3 is doing the same thing. Lighter, smarter, built around survivability and anti-drone defense, rather than the massed charge doctrine of the Cold War. In other words, every tank designer on Earth is now racing to build what the Challenger 2 accidentally already was. A survivor, not a racehorse. The relic was ahead of its time, it just didn't know it. For 30 years, we called the Challenger 2 obsolete. Too slow, wrong gun, outdated, too few to matter. Every one of those criticisms was correct, and every one of them was measured against a war that never happened. The Fulda Gap battle. Thousands of tanks charging across Germany, never came. The war that did come was fought in mud and trenches, under skies filled with drones, where the only tank that survives is the one that hides, shoots once from 5 kilometers away, and disappears. The Challenger 2 wasn't built for that war. Nobody's tank was. But by accident, through Britain's stubborn refusal to abandon thick armor and a rifled gun, the Challenger 2 ended up being the closest thing to a tank designed for the war that actually arrived. The experts weren't wrong about the facts, they were wrong about the test. They judged a tank for a war that died on the drawing board, and missed that the relic in front of them was built for the war nobody saw coming. Everything we knew about the Challenger 2 was wrong. Not because the tank changed, because the war did. The Challenger 2 will eventually run out of ammunition. Its mobility problems won't go away. It's not a perfect tank, and it never was. But it taught the world a lesson that's now reshaping every tank program on the planet. In the age of drones, survivability beats speed, precision beats rate of fire, and the tank that hides outlives the tank that charges. Britain spent 30 years apologizing for building the wrong tank. Turns out they might have built the right one for entirely the wrong reasons. So here's my question for you. Now that the racehorse doctrine is dead, which tank is actually best suited for the drone age? The Challenger 2, the Abrams, or the Leopard 2? Tell me in the comments, I read them. And subscribe, because next I'm breaking down exactly how the Challenger 3 plans to survive a battlefield where everything that moves dies.